Coral nursery monitoring and management. The coral nursery requires regular monitoring for it to be successful. Monitoring is not challenging when the number and size of the coral nursery is small. However, as the number and size of the nursery grow, it will increase task loading. This is when a good system of nursery management is crucial. In this section of your course, we will explain the monitoring steps that is needed in all coral nursery. You will also be introduced to the ways on how to expand your coral nursery. With this expansion, you will then need to be able to cope with the maintenance requirements of the coral nursery. Therefore, you will need to keep your time, your organization, and your resources in accordance to the magnitude of the work need to be done. Coral nursery management. This section explains how a large coral nursery operation is managed. There are many aspects of project management that is not included in this course. Here, we are focusing on the management of the daily activity at the coral nursery. Time and available coral gardeners to monitor and maintain the coral nursery must be handled with good organizational system. In a large-scale coral nursery operation, the tasks are divided in two parts. The monitoring part is done in the beginning of each day. A team of assigned inspectors is sent to the nursery to check the corals. This team will take note of the condition of the corals and what is needed to be done. This information is written down and is reported to the project manager. The project manager receives the information and processes it for task distribution. The project manager also prepares it for the daily briefing of the maintenance team. This allows the coral nursery maintenance to be concentrated on the action needed for the corals. After the daily briefing, the maintenance team will set to carry out the tasks assigned to them. They also observe and take note of anything that needed attention, or are not part of the task on that day. This information will be reported to the project manager during the debriefing at the end of each day. This is when all members of the project will gather and share the progress of the day. The input which will be added to the tasks for the next day. Some members of the maintenance team will be assigned to continue any work that is pending or are not completed in the previous day. Coral gardening. There are other members of the coral rehabilitation team that is not involved in the inspection and maintenance. This group carry out the coral gardening activity. They propagate corals. Their tasks in the coral nursery are space management. Newly propagated corals will be placed in designated nursery space. As the coral grow, additional space is needed for them in the nursery. New nursery bed is constructed when coral have occupied all available space in the existing coral nursery. This means the nursery is expanding. During the course of its growth, the corals are transplanted into new nurseries to create space. Matured corals are also transplanted to damaged site as part of the rehabilitation program. Like the nursery inspectors and maintenance team, the coral gardener's daily activity is also managed by the project manager. Coral nursery monitoring. What exactly do we have to monitor? Here, we divide the monitoring into 8 points. Each point must be observed, and action is taken during the nursery maintenance. State of health of corals is the first monitoring point. Everything happens in the natural coralline environment is reflected in the coral nursery. This includes the health of the corals. As the health of corals are directly related to stresses, it can be an indicator that can be used to minimize the impact. Corals display its health conditions through its color. Healthy corals have vibrant and vivid colors. When its health degrades, it becomes paler. If the stress is continued, corals can gradually lose its color and die. This phenomenon is called bleaching. This phenomenon can happen in the reefs as well as in the coral nursery. It is a challenge that must be expected when working in the natural environments. From these circumstances, we are able to monitor and record the events for our understanding and create better strategy to minimize it. Corals also become stressed from propagation activities. This is called post-propagation stressor. Therefore, corals must be allowed to heal without disturbance for at least 10 days after propagation. Disturbing them during this period can result in death of the coral. Common environmental stresses to coral are warmer seawater temperature, pollution, acidification. Secondary stresses like post-propagation stress and mishandling must also be minimized to ensure survival of the coral. Effects of water movement. Water movements constitutes large aspect of coral distribution. They also cause coral colonies to topple. Toppled coral colonies in the nursery is just as common as they are occurring in their natural environment. One of the tasks of the inspectors is to locate the toppled colonies. The task of the maintenance team is to correct toppled colonies. Coral grazers. There are many organisms in the sea that feeds on corals. Most are planktivores. They feed on the larvae and spawns of corals and other marine life. There are few organisms that feed on coral colonies. Some called them coral enemies. We call them coral grazers. These coral grazers are crown of thorns starfish, drupella snails, fireworm. If these coral grazers is found in the coral nursery, they must be removed immediately. Nursery condition. The stability of the nursery bed is achieved through coefficient of friction between the substrates. However, water is a dense medium and its movements can disrupt this stability. Bottom composition also can shift and cause the nursery to slowly sink. This is also happening in many natural environments. The condition of the nursery must be inspected regularly. Weak areas must be reinforced with additional substrate. Coral disease. Like all living organisms, corals are also susceptible to disease. Coral disease is the largest single threat to all coral reefs. Careful inspection must be carried out in the nursery to identify any colony infected by disease. Colonies infected by disease must be removed and placed in the quarantine nursery. This action helps prevent the spread of disease in the nursery. parasitic infestation. The impact of parasitic infestation is similar to coral disease. Scars and infected areas in the colony is often visible. Most coral parasites are small and hard to see. Therefore, any sign of parasitic infestation must be treated like coral disease. The colony must be removed from the nursery and placed in quarantine for observation. Algae infestation. Algae infestation is rarely a problem in the ocean quest system. The system is designed to eliminate algae infestation problem through the use of natural substrates with biological coating. Any algae growth will be picked by grazers like parrotfish and rabbitfish. In a new nursery, steps to attract the grazers is initiated through movement of substrates. Grazers are attracted to new substrates. By regularly introduce small number of new substrates, it can help recruit the grazers. Migration of species. A healthy coral nursery will attract new residents from the local reefs. This is complementary to the effort of building a suitable habitat for such species. Migration of fishes to the nursery is often beneficial. Grazers like parrotfish help feed on algae and control algae growth. Some species of wrasse help eat parasitic crabs that irritate coral polyps. Octopus feeds on burrowing crustaceans that could cause siltation of the nursery. Cuttlefish often make the coral nursery their feeding and breeding ground, as seen in this video. One of the rewards of coral gardening is these observations. Process integration. The progress of a coral nursery is gauged by its integration of processes. After the first nursery is developed, corals are propagated and monitored. The monitoring and maintenance will reach a level when the nursery is under good control. This indicates that it is time for expansion. Nursery development cannot be expanded aimlessly that it becomes impossible to maintain. Expansion must be gradual, and it is dependent on the capacity of the project manager and the team to manage it. Rehabilitation can only be accomplished when there are corals in the nursery that is healthy and well maintained. It is best to consider rehabilitation as part of the expansion from the nursery to the reef. It is also best to consider adding more hands in the project during expansion. Recruitment plans must be made to fulfill these needs. In line with the recruitment, all new members of the team must also be trained. Untrained persons cannot be allowed to take roles in any part of the project. Coral research, other than the monitoring activity, can now be added as part of technological advancement. Any expansion is not complete without this research. Expansion in the propagation side includes transplantation. This allows for spreading the corals over larger areas. With the expansion, coral growth observations is added to the monitoring activities. The coral nursery management will have many challenges during its development and expansion. Learning from these challenges, we are able to develop countermeasure plans and strategies. Countermeasure plans and strategy will guide us with proper steps in tackling problems. Now we have completed the process integration of coral nursery monitoring and management. You have learnt about the types of coral nursery in the first part of this course. You learnt about the connection of ecological cascades in site selection. the observation skills needed for the site assessment, the assessments, technique, and documentations. You also learned about the protocol in Coral Nursery. And in the last part of your course, you learn about Coral Nursery monitoring and management. This completes your Coral Nursery Development and Management course. This knowledge and the skills you will learn in the field will prepare you for the work in coral nurseries.